Firstly, Orlando, thank you so much for this event. This is incredible. So yes, my name is David Siddons. I run a real estate team here in Miami, and I've been doing it since 2010. And I'm going to give you a little bit of a story of my evolution. And that, obviously, is the word for the day. I got to say, this is actually the biggest crowd I've spoken in front of in quite a while, and it is really quite nerve-wracking. But I'm going to try to give you, obviously, a bit of my story. You're going to learn about who I am and most importantly, why I do what I do. But beyond that, it's not about transactions and deals and all those kind of things. It's about what makes you happy, what I did to be happy in the business today. By the way, who here is from Miami? So not actually that many. And obviously, if you're not from Miami, raise your hands. That's just pretty much everybody else. Well, I want to thank you for coming here, to travel across, to hear a little bit of, obviously, in this case, my story right now. I really appreciate that. And I want to vouch to you guys, I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm going to tell you from the heart how I feel. And hopefully what I share with you will help. We're going to start off by doing a little exercise first of all, because the first thing I want to talk about is connection. With nearly 1,200 people in the audience. What I want to do for the next 45 seconds, we're going to bring up 45 seconds on the clock, and I want everyone to introduce themselves to people that they don't know. And I'm going to come down and do this with you. And you can shake hands, you can high five, you can give them a hug if you really feel impelled and they don't mind. But for the next 45 seconds, I want to run a little exercise, and everyone just stand up, if you can, for a second. Thank you. It feels like you guys have started already. Wow, this is going well. Okay, we'll just start already. Let's start shaking hands. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. David? Hi. Pleasure. Yes. Pleasure. Pleasure. Hi, nice to meet you. Hey, how are you? Hey, nice to meet you. David. Hey, how are you? David
Hi,
Siddons.
how are you?
Pleasure. Hi, how are you? Look around here. Hey, how are you? Pleasure. David? Very nice to meet you. Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? Hey, how are you? Hey! What's up? Okay.
Okay.
So I think that was about 45 seconds. And you're probably wondering, why did David make me stand up and ask me to introduce myself to people that I don't know? Because this business is about two things, communication and connection. So if you're in the audience, as we went through this, who said hi, shook hands, high-fived, whatever, for 5 people or more? It's a good number. How about 10? 10 or more? 15 or more? Yeah, that would be a tough call. The point is, it doesn't really matter how many people you actually shook hands with or you high-fived. What matters is how many people you connect with. And I want to talk about that to begin with, because I was going to stand up on stage originally and talk about the process of how I run my marketing, how I do digital marketing, how I've built this brand that over the last 15 years has 1,800 articles, a podcast, so many reports, 800 plus videos, and how we've managed to build this business in Miami. And I thought that to talk about marketing would be probably putting the cart before the horse. I would be talking too soon about what really matters, which is what the message really is. I thought long and hard about what I was going to say when I came up on stage to talk to the audience and what I could say from the heart that really mattered, because I know that the business is tough. I know that we go out every day and we're dealing with so many different clients all the time, and sometimes we get kicked in the teeth. It's hard. And I just want you to know that even no matter what level you're at, there's always challenges. So what I found was that I was very driven at the beginning of my business, and I wanted to hit a number about 6-7 years ago. And I said, you know what? I want to do 100 million in sales. And I thought that would be the big top of the mountain for me, and I would feel great, and everything would be amazing, and I wanted to be considered a great realtor, and I wanted the reputation. And I had an annual award event, and I'm sure a lot of you relate. Every year, the big companies get together and give award ceremonies for how they produce and how much they make. And we're constantly thinking about how much we produce. And it's almost become ingrained into our business that we have to look and see what deals we're doing and trying to hit numbers. And I'll tell you, I hit a number. And my number that time was about 6-7 years ago, was 100 million in sales. I feel like 7 years ago, 100 million felt like a lot more than it does today. But I thought I'd be really happy. So I went to this event, and I had a great time. And I thought, as I stood up on stage, that I would feel really, really elated by winning this award. And I just felt anxious. I felt very anxious. I felt very nervous because all I could think about was I have to do more deals. I have to do more business. I have to make this next level, and I have to keep moving forward. So I went home after the event, and I have a condition called vasovagal syncope. And I don't know if anybody knows what that is. So the vagal nerve controls our central nervous system. And I have a very low resting heart rate. It's about 44 beats a minute. And I also have low blood pressure. Because I spent years and years being in sport and being very active, I could get my heart rate very high and very, very low. And what would happen was that if my heart rate went too low and I was resting and I lay down, I would pass out if I got up too soon. So if I'm anxious, if I'm stressed, that's exactly what happened. So I got home, and in the middle of the night, I got up, I went to the bathroom, and I passed out on the bathroom floor. And my wife found me. And I was taken to hospital, and as I was there, they put a drip into my arm. And putting a drip in my arm changed my blood pressure. And it sent my heart rate from 44 to 40 to 36 to 32 to 28. And they started pulling out the defibrillator saying, we're going to have to shock this guy because he's probably going to die. And my wife's standing there, and she's thinking, I'm here, I've got 2 small kids, and this is where I lose my husband. And I had an epiphany, and I don't have those very often. I realized that it was not the money. It was not the position. That's not what was going to make me happy. What was going to make me happy, what was going to get me up in the morning, was something else. So I had to find my why. I really had to find my motivation. And so I started to look closely at my business, and I started to realize that I needed to connect. And it can't be self-serving, because if you're just driven by the money, it won't get you there. I've been there. I know it. I promise it won't. That out of the way, I'm going to move on to how I make the connection, what I do. But in order to do that, I'm going to illustrate a point. So I need someone on stage. Okay, I'm not going to choose a guy who's like 300 pounds. I need to choose someone who I think I could. This nice lady here. Would you come up on stage? Thank you so much. Give her a round of applause. Thank you so much. What is your name, my dear?
Elizabeth.
Elizabeth, thank you so much. I'm David. Very nice to meet you. Okay, so where are you from, Elizabeth?
I am from Ecuador. I live here 6 years in Orlando.
Perfect, wonderful. And you're a real estate agent? Wonderful. Good to hear. Another one of the group. So you're not an MMA fighter, are you, by any chance? You don't play American football, do you?
No.
Okay, good. Just checking. Okay, so we're going to do a little exercise here, and I'm going to bring up on stage some assistants. Joel, come on up. Trust me, it's nothing. Don't look scared. It's okay. Okay, so let's go into the middle here. Step forward a little bit. Okay, so we're going to do a little exercise, and then I'm going to illustrate a point. What I want you to do, I'm going to brace myself here, is I want you to just try and push me. Try and push me.
Okay.
Just push me. Okay. Try and push me harder. It's okay. Yeah, again. Okay. 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 Was it easy to push me? Was it easy?
No, it was easy.
It was not easy. Okay. So we're going to do this again, but this time it's going to be a little bit different. Joel is going to be a little support for you at the back. We were looking for a wall, we didn't have one, but Joel, he makes a pretty good wall right now. Okay. So we're going to do it again. Okay. This time I want you to push me again. Okay. Thank you so much. That serves that purpose. Give it a round of applause, everybody. So you're probably wondering, why did this guy have a lady push him on stage? That doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm going to make the point. The point is, if you don't have anything to push off, if you don't have a base, if you don't have a foundation, you're going to have a very difficult time moving immovable objects. There's a large sense in the business that we have a mountain to climb, we have challenges to face, and sometimes they feel a little bit impossible to move. But if you have a base, if you have a foundation, something to push off consistently that becomes your core, then you can move it. And if you look to every big company, every big brand, every successful business out there that exists in the world today, whether it is Apple or Nike, and Nike has the saying, you know the saying for Nike? Exactly, just do it. They have something that is their core, their absolute foundation. And my foundation that I decided to create was this: better decisions. And you think to yourself, what is better decisions? Well, better decisions, it's not about better decisions for me. I decided if I was going to go out there and communicate to the audience, what could I do to help them make better decisions? So everything that I do, and today I drill it into my team, every podcast, every video, every article, every report, everything that we produce, every conversation that we have, this one included, is how can I serve? How can I not be self-serving? How can I help other people? And most importantly, how do I connect with a message that helps the people that I'm trying to serve? And when you do that, what I discovered was, number one, firstly, people actually seek you out and say, hey, I really like your message. I like what you're teaching me. I like what you're putting out. And very importantly, they recognize authenticity. And they really, really value that. And that is, I think, one of the most fundamentally valuable elements that exist. So I'm going to give you a few of my better decisions. Now, I'm sure you all have the things that drive you, and this might get your thoughts going and might inspire you to say, okay, so I'm going to look at what I can do to help my clients. And I'm going to share with you some of my better decisions. So I'm going to give you three, because we're going to do this as a relatively shorter exercise, and then I'm going to sit down here with Orlando, and we're going to go into really the business in more detail. The first one is taking action. And taking action means making actionable decisions. I learned a long time ago that we'd write reports, and those reports weren't helpful if they were just information. I needed to give advice. And so I would sit and I would look at reports originally. I think back in 2010, I looked at a report that the brokerage house had given me, and I said, what do I do with this? How do I make a decision using this? So I decided to write my own. I decided to give advice. And it was probably pretty horrible at the time, to be honest with you. I look back at that report and I cringed, but I put myself out there because people don't just want to know what's going on. They want to know why it's going on. They want to know what could happen next, and they want to understand the human behavior, and I think that's absolutely fundamental. Another point that I make in my better decisions for my clients is animal instinct. Now, I'm going to give very quickly. Does anybody know what the zebra phenomenon is? So zebras have stripes. We're all familiar that they have stripes. And it was considered that zebras would have stripes because it's a camouflage. But you can see a zebra a mile away on the Serengeti. I mean, it's not hidden by anything. The trees are, yellow and brown and green, and zebras are black and white, so they're not hiding from anyone. And then it was realized that they're not hiding against the grass. They're hiding against each other because pride, the lions that hunt them, look for one zebra to take down. And if they can target one zebra, then they know what to go after, and then they'll get that. And most people are the same. Human beings, we want protection. We don't necessarily want to make the deal of the century. We don't want to make the best deal ever. They don't want to sell at the top or buy at the bottom. They just want to make a good decision. They want to be protected. So I drill that into my team. And it's rationality. Rationality is another one. We've got to be rational about the decisions that we make because, mind you, you know that your buyers and sellers in a deal will do crazy things. It's very common to go out there and meet a client and say, oh, they're so nice, they're so normal. And then a month later, you go, oh, what's going on here? Why are they acting so crazy? We have to be calm. This is a big part of our role, to provide safety and security. Very quickly and finally, I'm going to give a point that I always say, which is understand the motivations. Because it's not always money. We're not always motivated by money. I have a client of mine who came in to purchase a property a few years ago, and it was the most expensive house in the city at that time. And I thought I was doing a great job. I said, I'm going to negotiate $500,000 off on this deal. It's going to be great. They're going to love it. They're going to be so happy with me. And he called me and he said, David, stop. I don't care. I want this house. Don't lose this effing house. So he offered $1 million over the price. And you might say that was kind of wild, but that was a one-off house. That architect had never built another house in that city and still hasn't. And today, that house is exponentially worth more. So know the motivations for your clients. Understand what triggers them. Help them make better decisions. So that's a little bit about me. And now we're going to sit down and I'm going to talk a little bit. Orlando, thank you. You can ask me a little bit more about what I do.
Now we're going into the technical, all right? Thank you very much, sir. Now I want to get into the technical. Only 11 years in the business? About
Yes.
11 years?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. About that.
What part from England you came from?
So I'm from West London originally.
Okay.
And I came here in 2007. I met my wife in a bar in South Beach, of all places.
Okay.
And I moved here a year later and had absolutely no idea what I was going to do.
Why Miami?
Why Miami? I was on vacation. I was on vacation and I fell in love with the city and I thought, this place is
It's amazing.
beautiful. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I realized that I wanted to settle here. And I left my business. And the economic crash happened, the '08 crash happened. And it was just disastrous. And I had no idea what I was going to do. And then a friend said, why don't you do real estate? And so I did. After I failed it, the first time I did the exam, I failed it. I passed it the second.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and then I got into it. And now, what is it? It's about 13 years later.
Okay.
I'm still here.
Right. So let me ask you a question. My brother, who I think is backstage, or no, he's around here. So he has two favorite speakers, right? You, because of the analyticals you put into the market, and then our next speaker, to him, he's like, he calls it the big bear, the god of real estate. I invite you to stay for the next speaker. He's so very, very one person and successful. You have all those analytics for the business.
Yes.
And my brother goes like, during the weekend, study them, right? How do you prepare for that information? What goes into getting all that? Where do you get it from? How do you practice that? Because what's the key word, the first word for the day today? What's the word? Evolution. I'm gonna show, and you don't know this. I'm gonna show one of your latest videos, which is amazing. But I'm also going to show the first one.
Oh, God.
Okay. All right. So, what goes into preparing David Siddons before a video, before a report, right? What happened?
So, surprisingly enough, I don't just sort of start doing it. What I'm lucky is that I surround myself by absolutely fantastic people.
Okay, people, write that down, right? Your environment. Right?
Yeah,
Shapes,
I say that. Actually, it's something that I missed to say when I was talking because I got a little nervous in front of such a big crowd. I feel a little better now. But the ability to connect with each other is absolutely critical because you all have a commonality. And that commonality, obviously, is real estate and also the belief in bettering yourselves and moving forward and evolving.
So then it's surrounding yourself with the right people and connecting with those people. Daniel and I were talking with David backstage, and you mentioned something that I loved, which is there's a difference between connecting and
communication.
Right? Big difference between communicating and connecting. Are you connecting with your client or are you just communicating information? And you're going much deeper into that.
Yeah. It's very common to go out there and see people put information to clients every day. They see something in the Wall Street Journal or Forbes or CNN or any big media outlet, and they just regurgitate it. In fact, they just throw it at the client, hoping that that information is going to impress them because they shared it. My 9-year-old shares stuff with me all the time. I'm not that impressed by it because she didn't make it. It's just, look at Daddy, look at this. What happens is that in order for you to really share information, you have to really study it and understand it. And there are fundamentals. And I do want to say that with the information out there, I think today, 2023, it's much harder to appreciate the information out there in the market than it was 13 years ago. Because we are literally drowning in information. There's so much data. The word big data gets thrown around again and again and again and again. So I filter it using some of the fundamentals. And what I come back to is, within the markets, the fundamentals that I believe are very important are what I learned in the School of Economics, which is the first rule, supply and demand. Months of inventory.
Write that down, guys. Right, that is so important. Okay, so number one is supply and demand.
Supply and demand is absolute gold. I mean, at the end of the day, if I have 10 apples and I have 100 people who want those apples, guess what happens to the values of those apples?
Go up in price.
There's no other variable. There's no other variable within the market that can change that. So if people throw things at you, and I see it all the time, and I had we get information. The last video I did was with a chief economist at FIU, and we were talking about that. So the first thing you need to know is months of inventory. The other thing,
month of inventory.
Yeah, it's months of, so supply and demand is calculated by months of inventory, which is the amount of sales that have happened divided by the number of active listings that you currently have in the market.
Say that again, please.
It's the number of sales within a period divided by the number of active listings that you have.
Very good.
So if I have 100 listings and I've sold 10, I've had 10 sales that month, guess what? I got 10 months of inventory.
There you go.
Okay.
Exactly.
Simple.
Very good. So it's number one, supply and
That's
demand.
number
Perfect.
one. Number two, I would say, is absorption rate, which is understanding the speed of transactions. And I say this because during I would say post the economic collapse, we had in our markets in Miami, we had somewhere around 110 months of inventory. And the conversation was, we've got like 10 years supply here. It's not going to get absorbed quickly. It's just impossible. It took 18 months because the speed of absorption changes. Because today, if I slash my prices by half, guess what? A lot of buyers are going to come into the market and they're going to snap it up. So understanding the speed of transactions, that's really, really key. Your dollar per square foot, of course, has always been that test of where market values are, your dollar per square foot within the neighborhoods. But I've always done this from the very beginning. I've taken reports and I have not done it as one big homogeneous blob, because markets do not work as one big homogeneous blob. That's why, as a neighborhood expert, you're going to say, in the 1 to 2 range, product does this. A $1 to $2 million buyer does not behave like a $10 to $15 million buyer, because their motivations are different. And you've got to recognize that. So averages don't work. I like the more specific you can be, the better. So those are probably some of the key fundamentals. And there's many others, and we put those out, and we actually create reports. And now also we have the software that allows you to look at the days on the market, the months of inventory, the dollar per square foot, and some of the other key information that's out there. That's what we call microdata. And then on top of that, you've got to layer in macro understanding, because your peripherals need to get wide. You can be hyper-focused, but if something happens at the national level, interest rates, for example, you can miss a trick. So it's important to understand that.
Are you sensing and noticing his ability to communicate his knowledge about real estate? And the reason why he's such a great producer, right? And it's been 11 years in the industry, right? Can anybody else get that information and learn to digest it and communicate it in a professional way like David? Yeah, of course. It's preparation. You have certain habits.
Yes.
And not only professional habits. You're in extremely good shape, right? You and I did a podcast,
yeah.
And I asked you for your personal trainer, which, by the way, is insanely expensive, and he still doesn't have time for one-on-one coaching. He said, "I'll call you when I have an opening." And then when he called me, I already got another one, but I wish I could have done it with him. Yeah.
I think there are habits, there's things that you invest in your life. I think there are non-negotiables. And there are things that have to be non-negotiable. My health is one of them, because I get up in the morning and I exercise, and then it sets me up for the day. And there's a lot of metaphors that I realize within my training that parallel into my everyday real estate life. But in the process of that, you have to fall in love. When you get into this analytics mind, you need to be able to share the information, as you said, very clearly, succinctly. You can't just throw everything at everyone, because people don't absorb lots and lots of bits of information. They'll absorb maybe 1 or 2. It's important to share that. Don't overload them. But as I always say...
How long are your videos now?
My videos now, they range, because obviously if we run a podcast like we'll do, it'll be 45 minutes. Right. But then we'll do a shorter version, and I have a fantastic, my podcast expert is over, I don't know where she is, she's over there. Okay, thank you, there she is. We will look at what people can absorb, and we'll absorb things down to like 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and obviously we'll have a longer version too, and then obviously we have the short.
Depending
so
on the
bites of info.
channel.
Yeah,
right.
yeah. It's just, again, the key there is, and again, people go out and produce content all the time, but they don't think why they're doing it. They're like, I've just got to do a video. but why are you doing the video? Like, what is your message? So we always make sure that the video or the article or the podcast will have a message. And generally it's one. We have to anchor ourselves with one
message
key
for each video,
message.
The key message. Do you notice yesterday we had the words of the day. Today, the first word is which? What's the word for today? One more time, what's the word for today? So every time there is an intention, right? Every time I'm going to speak, every time you're going to speak to your client, what's the message in the video? What is the key message that I want to convey? Very good, right? So I want to close with this, because you see him very successful now. I'll tell you a story. Daniel and I go to a restaurant in the Gables, about 15 minutes from here, for those of you who are not from Miami. We get there, right? And I say hi to David. Daniel and I go to our table, and all of a sudden, I see David like this. And I go to David, are you okay? He said, I'm okay, right? I just need a little bit of space. Remember that?
Yeah.
And I go, okay, don't worry about it. I'm on the next table, anything you need. And they had to call 911, right? Remember,
they called an ambulance right outside the restaurant.
An ambulance, right? So it's to show you the vulnerability that we all have. We all go through different situations. My brother and I got scared, right? And my brother is somewhere around here. That was a panic attack you had.
It was kind of a combination with my vasovagal syncope kicking in at the same time. What I find is that it is, there's a lot going on all the time. There's a lot that happens in business, and you become the result of your own creation. So when you're creating, if you're going to go out there and produce content, be aware of where it's going to go, because one day you could wake up and you've got an 800-pound gorilla in the room. And what I did was I created and I kept this train going. Right. If I look back in hindsight, I'd probably step back and say, okay, where's the value? Where do I focus on? That's also good for me, because it's a marathon, not a sprint. Right. And it's very easy to get into sprint mode in the business. You can look, I'm sure everyone does this, but stop looking at your Instagram at how many $1 million sales are happening around you. Okay, it's really toxic. And it's also not true half the time. A lot of the stuff is just regurgitation of what happened months ago. And it gives the impression that everyone's killing it. As I sit here on stage, and again, I feel privileged to be able to stand in front of you and say, okay, so I've run a business and it's been successful. But there are days when I feel like I fail. There are days when I feel like I don't get it right. When deals don't go the way I want them to do, when a client stops calling me and I've done everything right and they just disappear. The truth is that's going to happen. But your direction, your drive, and the decisions that you make, the better decisions that you make, to run your business the way that you want to, with clear intent, that makes you happy, that's going to keep you going. And ultimately, I believe that will lead to your success, the right way, the right success.
Very good, very, very good, David. So I want to end up, because the key word for today is evolution. This is maybe a gift for you. I don't know how good it is, but that's the idea. So I'm going to show, if production lets me share a video here, my computer. This is one of David's videos, right? There you go. Look at that view.
This is not going to be another one of those videos where we're going to talk about pre-construction projects and we're going to drone on about the floor plans and the prices and what things look like and just give you some general information. What we're going to do on this video is we're going to get hyper-specific and we're going to talk about what we believe the best units you can buy and what we consider to be the best luxury condo in Brickell today.
David is not selling that building. What is David selling? Himself. Through the knowledge of the neighborhood. Got it? So yeah, David said it's 1428 Brickell. It's an amazing development. But what is he showing? He's the expert. He's talking about the neighborhood. So maybe I'm not interested in that particular building. Maybe it's way out of my budget. Whatever it is, for whatever reason. Maybe because it's not ready yet and I want a resale. But who I need to talk to? David. I need you to understand way more than just watching at that video. Remember, there are two sales in every conversation, and the first one has to be you. And it's not you talking about yourself, it's David showing how much of an expert he is. And here's and I say it with the kindest heart, because to me it's incredible. The key word for today is what? What's the key word?
Evolution.
Evolution, right? This is an inspirational video. Extremely inspirational video, right? You saw David's video today, right? So again, it's all about evolution.
This was the first video.
This was David's first video. I don't know if you've seen it
YouTube channel.
in a long time, okay? But look how inspirational it is, and I say it, you know, with the highest regard to David, right? Look at this. Look at that, it's moving. All of us. Look at this.
Thank you very much.
Look at that. Here's the key point, guys. Here's the key point. David never stopped. And look what he has become in the last only 11 years. One big applause.